Hello everyone, my name is Borax and I've been on a mission to play and rate every single champion in the support role. Today we'll be looking at Annie, and the reasons why she could work as a support include a passive which enables her abilities to stun, which is great as that can turn your Q into a ranged point and click stun, your W into a short range AoE stun, and your ult into a longer range AoE stun. You also have your E, which when put on allies grants them movement speed, a shield, and a Thornmail damage effect. Even though she was an off-meta support pick for sure, does she provide enough utility to be viable? Well, let's find out together, as I rate Annie, the Dark Child, on her ability to be played in the support role. In the early game, I like to rate a support's ability to invade, lane, and roam. I've been watching Pro League forever, and I remember when Annie was a meta support and they would always start W and start spamming it so they would have the stun up for early fights. This is exactly what I do every game, and it makes her invade threat potentially deadly. If you can find the enemy team in an awkward position, a flash W or just a W is a good amount of CC for your team to get a kill. For invading, I will give Annie an A-. It's not the longest range without flash, and if the enemy CCs you instead, there's a good chance you will just get one shot. But she is great at counter invades, and if you turn on hacks and W this bush, you can get 3 gold for an early lead. Now let's talk about laning, where I like to judge a champion based on 3 categories: poking, peeling, and all-inning. Fun fact, Annie's basic attack range is the second longest in the entire game, which means in many matchups you can look to harass the AD without them being able to auto back. You do have to be a little cautious though, as Annie has one of the longer windups on her auto, which means you must allow for at least 19.58% of the animation to go off before you can kite back. While that might sound crazy bringing this up, I found it very noticeable, especially when I tried out Press the Attack Spectral Sickle Annie support, as I thought it would be hilarious, and it did do a decent damage, but having to be stuck in your animation, which invites the enemy to go on top of you, does suck. So yeah, instead of Press the Attack, I would frequently take Aerie, as her autos are still great, but not great enough to reliably hit 3 in a row. You could also just go for Comment and throw Qs at people, which is decent as you want to stack up your passive anyways, but the way I like to play Annie is by just always having your stun up as an option and harassing with autos instead, as you want to be ready to engage or peel. For poking, I will give Annie support an A+. It's not a S because poke supports won't be in range for your autos, but it's pretty annoying for most opponents as you can harass them down, but then they will get annoyed and try to engage, so let's talk about peeling. If you have your stun, peeling is easy. Press W to stun the enemy and start running away. I usually prefer W over Q as it's a faster projectile and you have the chance to hit multiple people with it. Granted, this won't work when the enemy CCs you for 4.13 seconds, but I don't think that's an Annie exclusive problem. Not only do you have your stun, but you can also slap your E on whoever the enemy is trying to engage on, and that person should be able to get out. If you don't have stun though, you had better hope is close to being up with like an E into W, as Annie isn't crazy tanky and can get one shot against certain supports. For peeling, I will give her an A+. I mean, the shield isn't the strongest, but the movement speed it grants is nice, and that stun is enough in most cases to get away. Annie's all-inning capabilities are kinda cracked. This champion does a sneaky amount of damage early on with her W, Q, and autos, which most people won't be expecting. To be fair though, I don't think most enemies would be expecting an Annie to be sitting in the top brush waiting for a level 2 Nidalee gank, but hey, I'm not going to complain when it works. I have no idea why these junglers are deciding to give my lane so much love, but I love it. It also lets me showcase how E is nice on ganks to let that jungler get in the fight faster for him to do what he needs to do. While I prefer W for Annie's peel, Q is often better for engaging, especially on a single target as its point and click CC and longer range. But then again, you can never go wrong with the classic old Tibbers drop to get the kill. For engaging, I will give Annie a S rating. When she has her passive up, she's great at engaging, as AoE CC is so strong, especially when you can extend their range with the usage of flash. It's not a S+ though, as she can engage when her stun isn't up, which is why I try to make sure that it's always up, so that it can be useful. Now that we've talked about Annie's laning prowess, let's rate the matchups that she might have to face. If you follow this channel, then you know that I disdain Morgana, and would say that she is the League of Legends equivalent of having your editing program crash for the millionth time because it's eating up all of your RAM. I hate this matchup because her Black Shield absorbs most of your damage, and more crucially can stop your CC. Her 10-hour launch snare is usually certain death for anyone it hits in your bot lane, and I'm just going to leave it at that because I'm tilting myself just thinking about this champion. While I really liked Annie's support, I think she has a lot of lanes which will suck for her, as she is quite squishy and her range is a bit short. Pokemage supports can live mostly rent-free without any response, and then you have those hook champions that if they hit you or your ADC, it's lights out as the separation between you two is not what you want. Champions that have more mid-range engage can be a bit tricky, but if you take Guardian and stay near your ADC to proc the shield, it's actually not that bad, and you can look to harass with autos early levels. I think the super scaling supports with super BS abilities are a 50-50 matchup, as you can do well against them in lane, but if they play safe, they will outscale you hard and you don't have the burst to one-shot them. Speaking of one-shot potential, that's exactly where all these enchanters belong. You can outrange them and their ADC early on with autos, and they don't really have the kill threat to punish you. Then, later on, if you get a good Tibbers ult, you can hit both the Enchanter and the ADC, giving your team a great chance to win. I think the champion that has to be really scared against an Annie is a Sona, as she is made out of pure glass, and if you hit your point and click stun when her Guardian is down, your ADC should be able to blow her up. Finally, we have a bunch of champions in them. Who plays these guys even, as I'm waiting to see people play these champions in my games. As you may have noticed, I was able to move Pantheon out of this tier, as I've seen him in some of my games, but sadly I have to relegate Bard down here, as I just have no expertise in this matchup, as no one is playing him, and I don't play him enough myself. Yet. Now let's talk about ADCs that you want to pair Annie with, and my personal favorite is something like a Caitlyn, as you both have crazy long range, and if you CC someone with Q, they can follow up with Trap, and that's a lot of damage. I feel like really strong ADCs that can all in really quickly are also quite potent, like Tristana, Draven, or a Twitch, because you can provide that guaranteed CC, but it's only one instance, so you want to blow up people rather than hit them a bunch of times, because that gives you a greater chance to lose as you won't have another stun up. In the hypothetical case that your ADC is a useless bonobo, then you might want to consider roaming from time to time, so let's talk about that. I think I've mentioned like 4 runes already, and here I'm going to mention another option, as you could go Predator support Annie and just roam a bunch looking for point and click Qs to get kills. Mid lane Annie's roam a lot, and that's because her kit is great for it. A stun that can either be point and click or AoE combined with self-buffing movement speed with E to get to those scraps quickly is going to make me give Annie a S- for roaming. Her damage output and CC is all there, but the potential to get picked off is also present, and her range being not the longest without flash is preventing me from putting her at the tippy top of roaming, but it's still really strong. Let's give Annie a rating for her ability to support in the early game, which will slot at an A+. Some of her matchups are just way too hard for her to be put in the S tier, but she is such an easy champion to pilot and can have a major impact thanks to her stun that I won't put it any lower. But how does she fare in the...
You wanna play too? It'll be fun.
In the late game, responsibilities with support I like to rate include their ability to get picks and to teamfight. Bush Garen is an iconic meme, but honestly Bush Annie should be right up there. If anyone ever face checks you while you have your passive up, then it's game over for them, as your stun at level 6 lasts for 1.5 seconds, which is just as long as Leona ult, but it goes up to 1.75 seconds at level 11, which is amazing and probably one of the longest stuns in the game. If people aren't willing to face check into you, a flash plus Q or even just E'ing yourself plus activating Shirelia's Battle Song to catch up to people makes me confident in giving Annie support a S- for getting picks. The biggest downside is how squishy you are, so if your team can't follow up, there is a good chance you are the one who just gets picked instead. Now let's talk about team fighting, where the support's responsibilities include engaging, peeling, and sometimes dealing damage. Engaging in a teamfight can be a bit harder than getting picks and will usually rely on you flashing on top of the enemies, but man, hitting that Tibbers is an amazing way to get a fight started off. The fact that it is AoE CC and semi-long range makes me give Annie another S- for this category. It is strong, but it is a bit one-dimensional and can be avoided if the enemies have crazy reaction speeds. That being said, Flash Tibbers is probably one of the fastest ways to CC an enemy for 1.75 seconds, and I think a big reason why we used to see this pick constantly played in this pro scene. Annie can struggle a bit with peeling, especially if you don't have your stun up from passive. You do still provide movement speed and a bit of shield from your E, and Tibbers can help run interference. I'll give Annie support an A rating for peeling. If you do have your stun up, it's super duper strong, as you can guarantee CC someone with Q or multiple enemies with W, but if the enemies see that you don't have passive up, then you could be in a real pickle. Annie does a sneaky amount of burst damage with her little combo, as you do have 3 damage spells that you can quickly dump on a single target. Sure, you won't be one-shotting people because you don't have the gold, but you can still bring squishies to like half health all on your own, which is pretty solid for support and lets me give her an A rating. I also think Tibbers can provide a consistent bit of damage while you can play safely, which might be more annoying than actually impactful, but sometimes that's all you need to do in the support role. Before we rate Annie's overall ability to support, let's take a look at the runes and items that I would recommend. There are truthfully a ton of rune options you can go for. If you like poking with autos, I think Aerie is nice as it also boosts your shielding in the late game. If you still want to poke but don't like to auto, then you could take Arcane Comet, but I prefer Aerie as the Comet falls off harder later in the game. If you want to play a safer lane, then Guardian isn't a bad option, and it really helps you from getting one-shot, which makes it the go-to option in lanes that are bad. The final rune option I could see working is Predator if you really like roaming, and it does help you get your stun off on faraway targets. You can also take Ingenious Hunter, which I think is a great rune, especially for supports. Secondarily, I almost always took Stopwatch and Biscuits for every page, as the sustain you get from Biscuits is nice, and I'm a huge sucker for Stopwatch and Zhonya's because of their playmaking potential. Now let's talk about items. For your gold income item, I'd recommend Spell Thief's Edge in lanes where you think you can auto the enemies to stack your gold. If you want to play a safer lane though, Relic Shield is a fine option. Then you want to go for your boots, and I'm back to recommending Ionian Boots of Lucidity so that you can spam your abilities more, which means more chances to get your stun from passive. Then there are a couple of build paths you can go down, and I'll start with my favorite, which is Enchanter Annie. The mythic you want to go for is Shurelia's Battle Song, because when you shield people, they will be zooming around the map thanks to the passive, and if you need more speed, you can still use the active to either engage or peel. Then, I usually went for a Chemtech Putrefier, as there's a ton of healing in League, and you can apply this item very effectively. By now the game will probably be over, but if not, feel free to go for other Enchanter items that you think will be useful for your situation. The other mythic I used to build was Locket, but since it's nerf, I'm a little less excited about this item, but I don't think it's that bad, and then you can still go for Enchanter items. If you are a bit more fed and want to go for some more carry potential, then you can build for a Playmaking Annie, which is either rushing Everfrost so you can CC people further after you hit passive, or you can rush a Zhonya's if you want to try and survive after using Flash Tippers to get the fight started. Whichever item you choose to go for first, buy the other one next, and if the game continues after this point, feel free to build some more AP or utility with something like a Morelos. Now that we've talked about the runes and items, let's give Annie an overall rating for her ability to support, which will slot at an A+. She feels like a solid mixture between an Enchanter and an Engage support, and while she might not be the best at either, she is decent at performing both duties. Would I recommend you play Annie's support? Absolutely. Annie is infamous for being a rather simple champion, and her long CC duration on her easy to land abilities makes her a very solid pick. I do think her short range and squishiness is a bit troublesome, but with the right build and runes you can make up for those shortcomings and have lots of fun with this off-meta pick. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and leave a like, that would be amazing, and if you'd consider subscribing, that would make my day. Again, thanks for watching, and I want to wish you good luck and have fun if you're playing Annie support yourself.